We'll start. Everyone is ready, I hope so. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome this morning as we, get into this discussion on how to get back to basics on the whole spectrum of cybersecurity and how it impacts our lives, not just currently during the COVID-19 pandemic, but how we move from here moving forward in terms of being safe online and using the internet safely, whether in education, business, civil society, and government. With me today, I have a panel of experts, game changers, business leaders who continue to lead the digital economy in their own ways, making sure that as much as they're working in these spaces, they're also ensuring that the public or consumers are protected as it should be. And I'm going ahead to introduce who the panelists are and the organizations that they are affiliated with. We have Maurice Kajangwe, who is a senior engineer from the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. Then we have Alpha Akariza, founder and director, Discovery International School. We also have Ernest Kainamura, founder and CEO, Hexacom. We have Nasra Bishumba, who is a senior journalist. We have Jenny Thornton, head of international relations, GetSafe Online, who are the ones actually hosting this event across 24 countries in the world. And then I am your moderator today, and my name is Sylvia Macario. I am a global shaper with the Kigali Hub and also a co-founder at Hepta Analytics. So just talking about getting back to basics, and the theme of this topic today is Global 24, getting back to basics that GetSafe Online has organized. And the reason that it's Global 24 is because this event is being held across 24 countries, either online and offline. So for Rwanda, we are hosting this online to ensure that anyone from anywhere can join in with the discussion. So I will just sort of get into it and allow the panelists to either give formal statements on where they stand with this kind of topic, or just give a brief summary of what this means, and then we'll go on from there. Anyone can start. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, and thanks so much for telling us all about Global 24. As a member of the GetSafe Online team, I'd be delighted to tell you a little bit more about this event, why we're having this event today and gathering here, and why it's relevant to Rwanda in particular. So as you say, Global 24, we're having events across 24 countries, yes, but we're actually also having an event every hour for the 24 hours that make up the 15th of October. So it is a super energetic day, all in the celebration and building awareness around online safety. And I think the topic of online safety and the basic tips and principles about staying safe couldn't be more relevant than it is in this moment. So not only is October Cyber Safety Awareness Month, it is also this year, 2020, we have just been hit by this global pandemic that has obviously had this huge health implication for global citizens around the world. But it's undeniable the impact that it's had in the way that it's propelling people to rely on the internet and to use public and private services in an exhaustive way that they've never had to before. And that goes for all sectors of society, from young to old, from the rural and remote located people all the way to the urban areas too. So this is why Global 24 and our conversation today is just so important. and I'm really honoured to be joining such an amazing panel of people. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll go to Nasra. I'll just go right.
I don't know if I'm going to be as articulate as Jenny was, but thank you for inviting me for this webinar, because I really think it comes at a very timely, it's very timely for me and for other people in the media, because while we were aware of fake news and online security, I think it's the pandemic, the outbreak of the pandemic made the seriousness of online security something that we need to prioritize as we do our work, because when it comes to the information we put out there, because most people rely on us, to be the ones to have the correct information, the right numbers, it's important that we not fall into the trap of fake news. So for me to be here with you all, it's a good opportunity to share views, ideas, and maybe even advice, because I'm sure each one of you has their own challenges, but for us in the media, it's even a bigger challenge, because everyone seems to be watching us and everyone seems to be relying on us. So we cannot make a mistake, because it could drown so many, but we also cannot, the kind of work that we do can put so many people at risk. That's why, because the countries, the people who are online right now, are so many people relying on information online, the number is growing every day. It's important for us to ensure that people can learn from us about online security, but also for us to ensure that the information we put there does not put many people at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasra. Maurice, I'll go right next to you because you're on my window right now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share ideas and information with this great team. I'm very excited by the topic, back to the basic. Really, in this pandemic period, we are relying on the technology to do many things. Come back to the basic. This theme is more significant as it is, as we can see, because to secure cyberspace, it is not require the expert. There is something that we can do, everyone can do, to secure the cyberspace, to secure our wallets and many things. As Nasira says, if everyone do his job, don't share the fake news. By using the technology, what you put on online, you don't know where it reach. And as those who are in the media, if they have to fine tune the information that they are going to share online, and also they can know what the impact before to share those information. It may save many people. That's why I'm very excited with this topic, and this is the opportunity as someone who is in the government to record the people what they can do. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Maurice. Ernest, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Yeah, so I guess with the emergence of the pandemic, many people and let's say businesses were historically, maybe they were not online or they just had a small presence online. But since now physical access to business or in-person meetings are now limited, businesses have had to adapt and create, let's say, an online presence, showcase their products. Maybe in the terms of retail, they're going to e-commerce solutions. So for businesses, a lot of these founders, a lot of these business owners, they're experts in their domain, which is either that industry, that product. They know their product, but they might not necessarily know IT or security, etc. And that's also a challenge, but they don't necessarily need to know, let's say, everything. They don't need to be an engineer. However, it's important for them to know the risks that this transition to online presence brings with it. And if they understand the risks, they can then get partners, get experts to say, I think I have an exposure here or there, or please check that I don't have such an exposure, so that it can be managed by competent experts. And there's many things, as far as if they're handling customer data, how do they handle the data? How do they store the data? How is it transferred? Is it secure, not only in the transmission, but where it's stored? Who has access to that data? And also, there's technical things you can do. Of course, firewalls, anti-spyware tools, etc. But there's also like written policies, which are just human behavior and human practices, saying, there's a principle of what they call least privilege or least access, meaning do not just keep all your data available to everyone in the company. People should have the right amount of access based on their job and the job requirements. So in the event that there is let's say, a cybersecurity incident or an outbreak, it is limited, meaning that, let's say, a low-hanging fruit, someone who's not very senior in the company, their device or something gets compromised, it doesn't expose things that were really not their business, but they were part of the organization and they had that. So cybersecurity is a combination of technical and, let's say, the soft interpersonal things which are safety related.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ernest. And we will obviously get back to everything everyone has mentioned as we go next to Alpha to paint us a picture based on the domain you come from.
Thank you. I think I'm here to speak on behalf of parents and children. If everyone's perspectives were very rich, and I think for children, you start to think of how do we, as parents and educators, pivot in this time. Essentially, we have to reinvent education, and we have to adapt very quickly, because until maybe this month, our buildings were closed. And so on the internet is an incredible opportunity to see education in a very different way. But at the same time, we're exposing our children to some potential risks. And so that requires that educators rethink what is child safety. When we're in the building, we're looking at it as a closed building where we know who is coming in and who is going out, and we can physically see what's happening in classrooms for the most part. And even as parents, when our children are at school, there's an automatic peace of mind. It's almost like the safeguarding is shifted to the school from 7:45 until 4 p.m. when you come home, and it's just it's so much simpler. Now with blended learning and online learning, parents are brought into the safeguarding in a very different way at a time when they themselves are stretched and stressed with having to navigate all the things that you're talking about. They're the business owners, they're processing the news, and they're in different sectors. And now they're also responsible for the safeguarding of their children in a bigger way, in terms of education. And so there are issues that come to front, like cyberbullying, like inappropriate content, child abuse, grooming, and peer influence. And the measures that have to be taken range from, you're talking about potentially a 3-year-old on a device learning the alphabet, but you also have a 17-year-old preparing for their exams, and this time around they could be on their device from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and you'll think it's school. Maybe it's school, but how do you then make sure that the learning is happening and that your child has the skills and the capacity to make good choices around the internet and around the tools that they have to use? And how do you as a parent put measures in place for a very young child to make sure that you protect them? So I think in short, it's really, yeah, it's those issues that come to front, and how do we as educators and parents seize the moment, but with the measures in place to protect the children.
Thank you, Alpha. I'll sort of stick with what you mentioned, and I think Jenny, you can touch on that as well. Then Alpha, I will just, we have all agreed sort of unanimously that cybersecurity is very fundamental, whether in business, in business and entrepreneurship, in media, in protecting children online, and just making sure that our networks and communication devices are well protected and well safeguarded to make sure that the economy doesn't tank, for example, and end up having kidnappings and terrorism happening just because all these cyber events started from online and then translated to physical. But then I want to go back to you, Alpha. How do you, yes, we are safeguarding children from being groomed, being almost ending up being kidnapped and all these things. But then how do you ensure that in your experience with the safeguarding measures that have been put in place, how do you ensure that you don't infringe on the privacy of your child as much as you're trying to make sure that they are protected and safe online while trying to access content? And Jenny, you can jump in, or anyone else who has information on this.
That's a very, very good question. And I think we need to look at it in terms of the development of the child. And the critical thing here, and probably that underpins everything we're trying to do because of COVID, is the relationships. And again, it comes down to how we choose to parent. And we need to invest in very solid relationships with our children from a very young age, and slowly support them to make good decisions. Now, for younger children, you actually have to know the passwords, and you have to have control over the devices. You have to know more about the device than your child, to be honest. And then you have to know what they're exactly consuming. And then as they get older, when you hit those teenage years, there are things that your child will be able to access without necessarily telling you. And so this is where the foundations of the early years and the relationships that you've built and the openness and the ability to come to you will be very important. I think every family needs ground rules around everything, really. The same way you'd have a curfew, you need some ground rules around the use of internet. And you could discuss and negotiate these with your child and say, okay, this is it. Of course, spying on children is not good, but it's better that your children know that you will put software on their device that will let you know which sites they're visiting, and if they're clearing their browser. It's just good to be upfront and have full disclosure if this is a choice you make as a family, so that your child does not discover after time T that you've been, snooping in on them. So for older children, I think the practice for good choices and the rationale behind why shouldn't you share private information on the internet? Why shouldn't you meet up with somebody that you do not know in person, that you just met online? Why shouldn't you contribute to bullying messages on social media? And so I think the why, as the children mature, is very important. And even as they're younger, still the why is important. But sometimes those choices are too complex for your 7-year-old and for your 8-year-old. And so it's very good to have that age-appropriate response depending on the age of your child. And again, to have some fair ground rules and to build the independence around making good choices and understanding the consequences of choices.
Thank you, Alpha. Jenny.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think what Alpha said is so poignant, particularly because a third of the global population of internet users are children. So that's across the world, across the planet. And in the context of Rwanda, this is also very true. Rwanda has a young population. The majority of the population are under 25. So when we think about internet safety in the context of Rwanda, we are talking about children, so this issue is front and center for the nation. And I echo everything that Alpha said. It's all about promoting that discussion around the dinner table about online safety, taking the taboo and the fear out of topics like cyberbullying, grooming, and looking out for things that don't seem quite right online and being confident enough to say to an adult, there's something not right going on here. I've seen this online. What do you think? So in my mind, and in my experience, I have a background in child online exploitation. That was the specialty I worked on before joining Get Safe Online. In my mind, there's two tracks of kind of behavior change and activity that need to happen. On the one hand, there's work on the part of the parent and the guardian, and about them thinking about, how do I connect with my child, my young person? How do we talk about online safety? Are there software resources that we can use to give us all a little bit of reassurance? But also on the part of the children, I think what I've seen, sometimes there is this common tendency to talk about safety for children and talk about it rather than with children. And children live and breathe the internet, and certainly social media, I think it's fair to say. And they are probably the ones who are able to, flag up threats and risks, and also they also may be best placed to identify what the current trends are in these online risks as well. So I think it's all about empowering young people and children, giving them a voice in this space, but also giving them the confidence to take positive action, and also even talk to their peers about, what is appropriate behavior online and what is not, what's safe and what isn't. When should you call something out or tell an adult? So there's those two tracks of action in my mind on this. And in case anybody is listening to this webinar and they're thinking, wow, this is good, I need to have this conversation around the family table tonight. I'd urge everyone to check the Get Safe Online Rwanda website, which is getsafeonline.org.rw. There is so much information on there through every topic of online safety. There's hundreds of pages of content. And we're working really, really closely with Riza and Maurice. He is my local colleague in Rwanda. We work very closely on this project, but we're also working on developing all of this content in Kenya, Rwanda as well, because we want all sectors of society and all people to be able to access this information and guidance. So yeah, that's what I would like to add to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for those insights. Maurice, I'll go right to you because, whatever Alpha and Jenny have mentioned sort of somehow become very successful once collaboration, for example, with the government or the department that is focused on championing that is in the forefront and making sure that protection happens in all realms. What are the initiatives that the Ministry of ICT or the government in general is putting in place to ensure that, as Jenny and Alpha said, empowering young people, just not young people, even the older generation, someone in the village who has access to WhatsApp, someone might send a link to them and they will just click because they don't have any knowledge or information on whether this link is malicious or it's infected with something else that will, if she ends up, she or he ends up sending this kind of information to other people, they will click without their knowledge, and before you know it, we have all the systems in the country shut down because of a cyber risk. So what are the initiatives that the government is putting in place today during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond? What are the measures?
Thank you, Sylvia. During the COVID pandemic, different institutions put in place what they can support during the COVID pandemic to manage the crisis. And the Minister of ICT have to put in place the enablers, because ICT, it is enabler for online services, and the ministry issues the guidelines to help the people how they can conduct online meetings. And also they put in place the digital signature to allow the people to approve online the work done. And also enhancement of e-learning platform to support the young people, the student, to continue the study. And also has promoted the cashless, where they reduce the online transaction, the fees for online transaction. But all this shall happen if all those systems are secure. As many of us have said, the behavior change is crucial for online security. Because many people, they did not know how to transact online. They raised issues for the mistake to share the password or to use the not strong password. We conducted many online trainings, online awareness, how to use digital signature. And also we worked with the media house to support us in conducting awareness. But the very important things is how to manage if any issue raised. Many people have conducted the Rwanda CSAT, which is a computer security incident response team, to support them to secure the online platform. And also we worked with the software developer to raise awareness for developing this, to develop security by design. And we worked with education, where we requested them to issue at least the policy to secure children, to protect children. The education, the schools must put child online protection policy, what the children can do and what they cannot do. We conduct the awareness to the parent, where we talk to them that the way they protect the children in the physical world, they must do it in the virtual world. Really, the parents are more care to the children when they are physically with them. They know who they meet physically, but they don't know who they meet. The children are meeting with online. Really, online there is many predator to the children. The parent must know that, and also apart from those predator, also the behavior change for the children. As they said, cyberbullying, cyber criminals. There are many risks online. We tried to conduct awareness for the parent to show them what the risk the children may face when they are online. And we advised them to blend physical and the virtual activity while their children are accessing the virtual world. They will help to reduce the time that they are using online, but also they build the physical activity for the children. And also we conducted awareness to the business owner, because they have to immigrate the activities that they do online. Therefore, they must know how to conduct e-commerces, how to secure their platform. And if they don't have those skills, they must look someone who is technical to help them to secure the platform. Thank you, Erot.
Thank you, Maurice. And I'm glad that you mentioned, elaborately on all verticals, how you've been trying to help from business to working with educators and civil society in making sure that everybody is secure online. So I'll go to Nasra before coming back to Ernest on this question. With the government stating that they're working with the media in ensuring that people are educated, people are empowered with information, how are you as media or as Nasra, as a journalist, taking the steps to make sure that this information is out there, even in local languages that someone in the village, for example, will understand, to make sure that they're safe online? Is that something that the media is adamant about? And if that's true, then are there steps you're putting in place, whether in your websites, to ensure that whenever someone clicks, they have to fact check? I remember a tool that Twitter, for example, created, trying to make sure that before you retweet something, you have to fact check to make sure that it's true. What are some of the measures that the media is putting in place to ensure that we don't end up spreading fake news, because fake news is very clickbaity nowadays? Thank you.
I think for us, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. For us, I think it's mainly verify. Because the information that we put there, most of the time, if not all the time, the moment it's out there, there's nothing you can do. Even if you make some corrections, someone has already taken a screenshot, that information is already circulating, there's not much you can do about it. So at the beginning of March, we kind of changed the strategy. We were a bit more careful than we have been when there was the outbreak of the pandemic. Because in Rwanda, when we had the first case, there was a lot of fake information going around. In fact,
Right.
at the beginning, the Ministry of Health was spending so much time debunking fake news because there was already panic. So I don't even know why people do that, but there were so many announcements going out there talking about false information, and people were sharing it all over the place. So what happened is that for us, we decided, which I think is what was happening with the rest of the media, to only stick to official channels. That is the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. And then what we tried to do at the beginning of March also, I did an article in the newspaper talking about fake news and how to tell fake news from especially because of WhatsApp. So there's a lot of information circulating. So I did a piece, which I have here, that I could refer to, where I was talking about the need to verify from trusted sources. So within the media industry, we were required to, again, look at the World Health Organization, look at the official communication from the government, from the Ministry of Health, and from individuals that are qualified to talk about the pandemic. But also in the piece that I did talking about verification of information or fake news, we were explaining to people that fake news is not only, there are two categories, because there's fake news that is outright false. But then there's the other category where there's probably a grain of truth, where you could say, for example, that the numbers in COVID numbers have increased, but the government has decided that to mitigate this, they are spraying all the houses in Rwanda. The truth is, yes, the numbers were increasing, but it was false. The government was spraying the houses, trying to disinfect people's homes. Unfortunately, people don't verify information most of the times, and the people who spread fake news are smart. So they will start with the truth, and then they will slide in the fake news. And for people to be able to identify that is a challenge. So that's what we were doing when we wrote the piece, was to show them how best to identify fake news. And for us as the media, and also for the people out there consuming this information. And then at the time I talked about viral information. Everyone is on WhatsApp, and there is nothing that spreads like bushfire like WhatsApp. The moment one person sends a message, before you know it, if you've seen in your phone, you could have the same screenshot like 100 times, because all the groups you're on are sharing it. So I was telling people at the time that if the fact that something is viral doesn't make it true.
Right.
You need to verify. And if you've noticed, there's nothing that really travels faster than a lie, because people like sensational stuff. And unfortunately, also on the media landscape in Rwanda right now, with these YouTube channels, with these they call themselves YouTube TVs, there's a lot of false information out there. So just because someone has a YouTube channel doesn't make their information true. So someone will get a small video from there, or just a few seconds from that video, and spread it to the whole of Kigali. Now, maybe in Kigali, people are going to know that this is not true. But how do you make people in the village understand that this is fake news? So we were working with we were working with some of the other people in the media, especially in Kinyarwanda, because Kinyarwanda, obviously, almost everyone here is speaking the language. when I'm talking to my colleagues, I'm telling them, you could put this out there, but try to verify what you could cause trouble. You can cause panic, and you do not want people to panic in the midst of a pandemic. So
Totally.
then I was talking about being keen on the details. If you look at most of this viral information, it's never 100% proper English or Kinyarwanda. Is the punctuation. There is always something in that information that is not accurate, even from just looking at it. Because I think people write this stuff hurriedly, and then you have to look at the date sometimes. You have to look at how they spell people's names. I always tell people to look out for that. And then we also talked about the evidence, examining the evidence. So for us, we say, before you write a story, how do you tell the real from the fake?
Right.
Normally, a credible story will have facts, and it will have quotes, official quotes from the government, from the civil society, from people that are actually known out here. If I talk about Alpha of Discovery, people know Discovery. If I talk about Jenny, people can go and they would go to Google and they will find what she does. And it's important that when you look at the story, you look at the numbers, you look at the names, who are they quoting? If these are missing or the name is not familiar, it's very important for you to verify, because what we are doing in
And
Rwanda,
thank you for mentioning that, especially because, all those steps that you take towards making sure that news is verified also ensures that, the fake news, that the links that fake news comes from, people don't end up clicking on them because they're the ones that are riddled with malicious software or something else that is going to infect laptops or devices elsewhere. I'll come back to you, but I want to go to Ernest and just hear about his thoughts and insights on, Ernest, you're in, business and entrepreneurship in the IT sector, and your organization is developing tools and platforms that are digital. And that means that you constantly, as an organization, have to think about how to protect your consumers, how to ensure that in whatever transactions that they are performing, they are actually safe and secure, and they have confidence with the fact that their money is not going to be stolen or their credit cards are not going to be compromised. Is that something that keeps you up at night? And do you feel like the government has put enough legal structures to take care of issues like credit card, identity theft and just people stealing credit information from, digital platforms?
Great. That's a very good question. As you know, the industry is constantly evolving, and the threats as well are getting more sophisticated day to day. So I like to tell people or my clients is that, security is not something you do once and then you leave it. For example, it's not like your home where you say, okay, I need to get a wall, a gate, a lock, put bars on the windows, and once that's there, it's done. No, it's software, IT, information security is alive and moving. It's more, you can relate it more to a human virus that maybe is evolving and changing each time you give it a vaccine or something. It mutates, another form comes, and you have to keep fighting it. So it's the same thing with IT security. You're never 100% bulletproof, but what you can do is minimize the likelihood of that happening. For example, there's Microsoft would release patches to their software. They call it Patch Tuesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's good and bad. It's good because they say, oh, we found some vulnerabilities. Here's a patch to close it, right? But also it would announce to hackers and say, hey, Microsoft just said these windows are open, no pun intended. Let's go attack them. So they provided a solution and a patch, but if you don't update it or you don't patch it, you're vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
So it's you have to stay on your toes. You have to say, okay, the products you use, the services you use, are they limiting the potential exposure? Are they limiting? Because, you know, there can be a data breach, but what do they get from it? Do they get just a small piece of the data? Or do you store your data in such a way that things are anonymized? So they don't necessarily know who the end user is. They just have things like a UUID, which is like a 40-digit number that represents just an ID, an object, a transaction, but you don't know what it's related to, so that they cannot piece all the pieces together to get a complete picture of the information they got. They say, okay, we have something, but what it shows is only part of the picture.
Right.
So that's also a practice, is to limit what can be exposed, because people are going to try every day. We have the biggest organizations in the world with thousands of engineers working on security, and things do happen. Another thing is, if something does happen, is what is the plan for when it does happen? You know,
Right.
A good security plan or recovery plan is, in the event it happens, because you can never assume it won't happen, is how will you respond? How will you communicate with customers? How will you communicate with partners? What steps do you have to mitigate that exposure and loss? Which is just as important as the initial steps you do to protect it. Is how do you respond in that case?
Right. Thank you so much for those insights. And you know, it's one of those things that you, as you've mentioned, it's a continuous process. So I'm hearing empowerment, behavior change, continuous collaboration on, you know, a multilateral format to make sure that, you know, cyber awareness, cyber crimes, and cybersecurity is made aware to the public in general. And I also hear just forming a relationship with your children, just to make sure that they understand the risks as much as they will also appreciate the fact that you're also trying to be protective of them. So before we open up to the floor for questions, I can see participants have started asking questions. I wanted to, this is just for all of you as panelists, I wanted to know, as much as we keep on, you know, talking about cybersecurity, we have the media outlining that even in local languages, we have organizations like Get Safe Online, we have Hexacom, you know, making sure everyone, we have the Ministry of ICT and you know, educators who are making sure that this information is out there. Why is it that still we don't have enough people actually taking this seriously? Is there an apathy for that? Is it that people just don't care and they just want to perform any the activity they want to perform online and keep it moving? What is the problem? And you can keep it as short as, you know, seconds, so that we can, you know, look at and questions from participants. And attendees or participants, please ask your questions, and then I will pass them on to the panelists. Yeah, so what is the problem? Why are we not there yet? Or do you feel that we are there already? Jenny?
I think it's very similar to how Ernest described it. Staying safe online and cybersecurity takes work and effort. So it's a constant commitment and responsibility. And possibly it's human nature. People get risk fatigue, you know, even if they hear the same message about staying safe over and over again, it maybe becomes background noise. So that's why you do need to keep revisiting all of these topics over and over again to make sure it permeates the consciousness of people throughout society. And I just wanted to mention something that Get Safe Online are doing to try and kind of address this side of online safety in making it ever present in people's minds and reaching out to people. We are just about to embark on a really exciting ambassador training scheme in Rwanda. And I'm just going to put in the chat here an email address that anyone who might be interested in getting involved in this kind of voluntary role, they can get in touch with us and learn more about what we're planning to do. But the idea of that scheme is that they can be the change makers in their communities and help to cascade information and messages about online safety in Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for the insights. Anyone else that wants to go? Alpha, I can see you.
Yes, I think in this current context we're in the time we're in, I've observed that we almost think it's too early to start with children. And then when we think it's time, maybe the child is 14, 13, 15, 16, we feel like we're already too late, right? We find that they know way more than we thought they knew, and they have a mastery of these apps and devices, and they're ahead of us. So I think that probably contributes to the risk fatigue. On the one hand, we think children are too young. My 5-year-old quickly figured out how to exit the device and log in and browse as a guest. And so, yeah, at 5, he figured he could bypass everything I'm doing. And this is a child who'd never used a laptop. Like, we only introduced laptops because of online school. And so he quickly learned that he could log out and come back as a guest, and then he could get everything he wanted. Like, his YouTube would now be there and everything, because I had created a safe account where he on his Chromebook, where he could log in and just see what he needed for school. And so then I had to figure out how do I manage the browser's guest component. So if a child as young as 5 can figure that out, you can imagine how early we should start to have those conversations and equip our children to make good choices. And so I think this is part of the confusion with I'm speaking in terms of parents and maybe teachers, that we think that children are too young. And then when they're teenagers, we think we're too late. And that's why people just kind of give up. Yeah.
Thank you, Alfred. Morris.
Yeah. I can say, summarizing 2 main problems. The first is the nature of cyber environment, where someone can go to your data and you cannot figure out that someone is in the middle what you are communicating. If someone says your data, you will not know if you are not savvy tech. The second is the behavior change. Really, if you talk to someone, please use strong password. Namely, many people want the comfort zone. They will not change. They will take a long to change and to understand why I have to use the strong password. If you talk to the businessman, please, you can buy this device to secure your business. He will tell you, I have in this business 15 years. I did not get any problem with that. That's why behavior change to take along. We must do more awareness and also do some demonstration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernest and Nasra, in a few seconds, what do you think is the problem? Ernest, are your clients really taking cybersecurity seriously, or do they just want to perform a transaction and move on without?
Yeah, I think it's back to what I started with at the beginning, is their lack of appreciation of the risk. As Maurice said, if they've been doing it 15 years and there's no problem, they think the risk is low. But they don't realize that now their business has changed and that risk is now higher. It seems like they need to be bitten by the snake to understand how the bite feels. So they have to adapt. I feel like that. They have to appreciate the risk has changed. Their business is not, on their desk where before there was just a notebook, a pencil, and a landline. Now there's a smartphone, a computer, e-banking, the ERP, a stock. So it's not the same, and they have to reappreciate or reevaluate the new risks, and then they can decide what they can invest to mitigate that risk. Because of course, business owners, we're looking at generating money, maximizing profit, reducing costs. But if we say, all right, I have that risk that could potentially make me lose $50,000, $100,000, and the solution is $2,000, I would make that investment.
Absolutely. Nasra, in a few seconds, are people taking the information you're providing seriously as media, or has it gotten to a point where media is not trusted anymore?
I don't think it's about the media not being trusted anymore. I think the whole cyber thing is something new to most Rwandans. In as much as they have jumped on it and are excited by it, it's something new to them. So to be able to tell someone about security online, they don't take it seriously, generally, because seriously, someone will tell you, I have bigger problems. I just use social media for fun, for business. It has nothing to do with me as an individual, with my personal life. They just don't realize how much in the process of using the internet, their life is somehow out there. Their information is somehow out there. So for me, I really agree with what Alpha was saying earlier. I think if we're going to win this, at least long term, we need to start with the children right now. Right. Then they are going to be the ones to go up with this information. And first of all, because they are more at risk, but also because the moment you teach kids something and they grow up with it and it's part of their system and they know all this stuff, it's better for you to avoid a bigger problem in future.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So you had it all. Start them young. So I'll quickly jump onto the Q&A, and participant Thioneste, I hope I pronounced that right, is asking, I just wanted to ask our panelists about the top 3 cyber attacks or threats, cyber crimes in general, that are trending in Rwanda, and what is being done to mitigate it. Who wants to take that? Maurice, you are in the government.
Thank you. Really, if I'm going to classify the top, the first is the fake news. The fake news, they have 2 nature. It may be cyber or physical. But in this pandemic period, the fake news have been at the first place in the cyber incident that we registered. The second is the identity theft, which is coming with the more usage of mobile money, where someone is saying that I'm working in this company or I'm this person, The third one is phishing email, where there are many spams are going to the inbox of the people or the business owner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Boris. I think, yeah, Terence has asked another question, but this one is has been thrown to Alpha on behalf, who is speaking on behalf of children and parents. What can you tell the teenagers who are sharing their, I think, the main nude pictures or videos online and the consequences about it in future?
I think, sorry, I took off my headset.
Anyone else can jump in if you have any thoughts and insights.
I think when a child is engages in such activities, we have to go back again to the question of relationships, right? What makes a child vulnerable to act in such a way that is making a poor choice? And most of them know what it means when you do something like that. There are also legal consequences to sharing, especially if you share such images with a minor. And in Rwanda, a child is 18 years and below. And so you have to be really careful. I think children have to understand the consequences of doing something like that. But I think on a deeper level, as family members, as educators, we have to really ask ourselves, why is this child choosing to express themselves in this way? And then dig from that point to see what support they need in order to make better choices. If we're talking about a whole child, the same child, it might not be the case, but a child who will be vulnerable to inappropriate behavior online might be the same child who will be vulnerable to making poor choices when they're not online, because the underlying issues that led them to that point and to that kind of risky behavior will be consistent whether they're online or offline. And so I think the point there is to find a way to have honest conversations and to find out what is the need and what is the child trying to meet by behaving in such a way, and being there to support them so that they can make better choices going forward. And this is where our role and I would say even as parents is critical, because any child acting in that way means there are issues on the social emotional level, and perhaps maybe they're facing mental struggles, which become very challenging during the teenage years, where the hormones affect their behavior and affect how they make choices. And so we have to put to lay a strong foundation for social emotional health, so that children can come to us when they're under such pressure, or even when we discover, we can be able to have those conversations with them, which is a shift from the past, where everything was kept under the carpet and you were punished severely if you were caught. I think the children today are exposed to a lot more than we could imagine. And so we have to change gears and see how to have them own their safety gradually and make good choices. So I think it starts with the relationships with significant people in their lives. And if those are solid, that is the security on which to help them course correct and make better choices going forward.
Thank you for the insights, Alpha. Jenny, do you have any comments on that? You've worked in this space before.
Yeah, definitely. I just applaud everything that Alpha says and boost it through this conversation, having that open conversation and changing the tradition of keeping it as a hush topic. It just needs to be something in the past. Moving forward, online safety needs to be one of the key family discussion points.
Thank you, everyone. So we don't seem to have any other questions, so I will just generally open up for final sort of parting words. And, we've spoken about behavior change. Again, I'm reiterating that behavior change, making sure that there's collaboration, just creating awareness as much as possible from all the different entities involved in these processes, ensuring that as much as there's apathy or there's just informational fatigue, we continue with the nudge of making sure that cybersecurity is taken seriously. And, the numbers and statistics out there are very horrifying. Every second, 18 adults are affected by various cyber crimes. And that translates to 2.3 million people per day. So you can imagine a huge chunk of that is in the African continent. So it is something that needs to be taken seriously by individuals, governments, and everyone just remotely in this space, because we are now dependent on ICTs, and internet powers all these devices and all these communication networks. And we have to ensure that this is well taken care of and safely allowing for us to use those. So I will allow everyone to give their parting shots before we close the session. Thank you. Who wants to go first?
Thank you. Redis cybersecurity require three main pinpoints. The first is technology. I request everyone to have the technology to support, to ensure that what we are doing are secured, to choose the best technology that shall allow to do any business. It requires also the people behavior change. I request everyone to join cyber awareness, also to change. It starts really by individual, not the group. If everyone is doing what he must do, I think that we shall secure our business, our future, and also it requires the process. I request every business owner to put adequate process to verify each step. If we put together those three pinpoints in our daily business, I think we can reduce cyber incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Jenny. Oh, Nasra, go ahead.
For me, I think there is nothing out here that any one person can do alone. If we're going to deal with this, we need to work together. Everyone, every sector, we need to be open-minded and be willing to go after it. But most importantly, we need to ensure that there's the right information out there. Mm-hmm. And we need to discourage people who share fake news or false information. And the right information should be channeled through as many people as possible and to as many children as possible. And I really think there's hope that we may not be able to stop this all together. I mean, cyber insecurity, but we can achieve something if we don't, this discussion doesn't stop here. We need to continue with the discussion. We need, like Jenny said, constant work. We need to talk about it as often as possible. So Jenny, I'm going to be your ambassador.
Good. Right.
Yeah.
Ernest, Alpha, Jenny, anyone can go next. Final thoughts or parting words to the rest of the attendees.
Just final words. prior to this panel invitation, I was not aware of Get Safe Online, and I was able to go and browse through the site, and I have to commend them because it is a great resource. It has a lot of information. It's succinctly summarized and easy to look for. So that's a great starting point, and it's great to hear there's plans to translate the content as well. And really, that's where you need to start and educate yourself.
Thank you, Ernest. Alpha.
I think at a time where we are all pressed for time, more so as we try to recover from COVID, I think the rallying call is to be intentional and make the time to invest in time with our children. There's space for software, there's space for policies, but you cannot outsource the impact of a present and involved parent. And I would say that this is the bedrock of child safety, online and elsewhere, is to be able to educate our children, to have conversations with them, to equip them, and then, of course, put the practical things in place. But the solid relationships from a young age are the bedrock of safeguarding. And so I think at a time when we're all stretched and stressed, it's important to bring that back to the forefront and say, if anything mattered right now, it's the relationship with my child. It's not, I mean, there are a lot of things we're stretched about, but I think we must not lose sight of the fact that the main currency of how to make it and make sure our children are safe and that they make the most of the online tools is that we make the time to have those conversations and to help them navigate the different choices they have to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Alpha. Jenny.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, everybody. Just some kind of final words for me, which is words of thanks. This Global 24 event couldn't happen if it wasn't for all of our partners around the world participating. We're delighted that Rwanda are one of our key partners, and this panel has been fantastic. I think each one of these individuals are impressive and experts in their own right. So together as a group, it has just made for the most fascinating discussion. I almost feel like we need a part 2, actually. So,
right?
Yeah, help us out. We need another one, but I also want to encourage people to check out the next event on our schedule, which is the Women in Cybersecurity from the Middle East and North Africa. So the conversation certainly carries on today, and that's over on Twitter. So thank you so much for having me on board, and thanks again for all of your participation and for our attendees tuning in as well. Thank you.
Right. That is it, everyone. That is Jenny, Nasra, Maurice, Ernest, Alpha, giving us insights and, ensuring that we get safe online. I'm quoting get safe online directly. And,
thanks, Sylvia.
Yeah, totally. So I'll hand it over to Diana to sort of close and, give a vote of thanks before we end the session. Diana.
Thank you very much. It's been really interesting listening to all of you. I'm here representing Get Safe Online on the webinar in Rwanda, but obviously Jenny is the Get Safe Online Head of Relations. But in putting together this webinar, thank you so much. I think the insights have been extremely useful. This content will be uploaded to our YouTube page so that we can share this conversation even after we're done today. So Sylvia, Ernest, Maurice, Alpha, Nash, Nasra, and Jenny, thank you so much. It's been great. And Sylvia, back to you to officially, as the moderator, end the webinar before we move to other parts of the world where Global 24 is taking place. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and thank you to the moderators for being very gracious with their time and, volunteering the insights that we needed to hear. It's been a very interesting conversation. Even me coming from a technical background, it was so nice to hear the perspective of a parent and an educator. Sometimes we think it's technology and we are creating all these useful things, but then at the same time, we don't see how the impact goes back to young people. So thank you again, and thank you, Jenny, and to Get Safe Online for organizing this. And yeah, I wish you a great afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sylvia.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.